Split pea soup with ham bone is easy and delicious. It's a great way to use up what's left of your holiday ham as well as to stretch your budget. Like I've said in previous videos, I have some leftover ham. I made a ham for Christmas. It was delicious. And of course, that video recipe is coming soon. I used some of the leftover ham in my black-eyed peas, in some collard greens that I made recently with some ham hock, and it was fantastic. And now this is the end of the ham. Here I have the ham bone in a pot of water so that I can make the ham bone stock. And over here I have the bit of ham that was left on the bone. I took off as much as I could, as much of the meat, but there is still a little bit of meat left on here and a lot of fat. I think as I boil the ham bone, the bits of meat that are still on the bone are going to fall off, and of course some of the fat. Off to the side here, I'm making some vegetable stock. The same recipe as always, that's already on my channel. Carrot, celery, onion, garlic, and my secret ingredient, bay leaf. I'm making the ham bone stock and the vegetable stock separately because, as you can already see, the ham bone broth is going to be very fatty. I want to have a little bit more control over the amount of fat in the soup, so that's why I'm making the vegetable stock in one pot and the ham bone stock in the other pot. That way, when it's time to make the split peas, I can add all of the vegetable stock and then as much of the ham bone stock as I need. That's a good way to cut down on the calories after the holidays. For those of you who've never had split peas, they're basically dried peas. Some are green, some are yellow. I prefer the green version. I think green split peas are more flavorful, but there is a yellow split pea soup from Quebec in Canada that is traditional and is supposed to be really delicious, so I might have to try that at some point. But first things first, like I said, I'm making the vegetable stock, and now after taking off as much meat and fat as possible, I'm going to boil the ham bone to make the ham bone stock. The pot with the ham bone has just come to a boil, and as you can see, there is some fat floating on the top, so I'm going to start skimming that off. I ended up cooking the ham bone on medium heat, guess mark 3 out of 6, for 2 hours, flipping it halfway through so that both sides could cook equally. After letting the ham bone cool for about half an hour, I took it out of the broth and then picked off a little bit of meat. As you can see, there really wasn't that much. I then pulled as much of the remaining fat and gristle off of the bone as possible so that I could put the ham bone in the split pea soup. I'm now ready to add my green split peas. I put the ham bone back in the pot. I put in all of the homemade vegetable stock as well as probably, I'd say half of the ham bone stock. Here I have 1 pound of split green peas that I rinsed. Now I'm going to add them to the soup pot. They're kind of wet, so they're sticking together, along with 1 small onion chopped and 1 clove of garlic chopped. I'm adding the garlic and the onion now because I want it to disintegrate and not really be at least visually noticeable in the soup. I'm thinking about adding some carrot and potatoes, and I think it would be nice in terms of color to have the green soup with bits of orange and white. So I'll add the carrots and potatoes later, but like I said, I want the onion and garlic to just kind of disintegrate into the split pea soup. I'm going to bring this to a boil, and I'm going to then put it on medium heat, guess mark 3 out of 6. My split pea and ham bone soup has now been cooking on medium for 45 minutes. As you can see, the split peas are breaking down nicely and forming a nice thick soup. At this time, I'm going to add the carrots one medium carrot and one medium potato that I cubed roughly. Add those in. I'm also going to get some leftover ham and add that in so that it can cook for about half an hour and start to break apart and shred a little bit more. It's only been about 5 or 10 minutes since I added the carrots and potatoes, and you can see that the split peas are really breaking down now. Now I'm going to add some of the ham that I took off the bone. I'm adding a little over 300 grams, about 2/3 of a pound of ham. I pulled it apart into smaller pieces, and so I'm just going to drop it into the soup like that. I think the soup is going to cook for another maybe 30 minutes or so because I want it to be nice and silky smooth, so that ham is going to break down even more. My split pea soup with ham and a leftover ham bone is now done. It has been simmering for an hour and a half. What I did is as you saw, I made the two stocks, put them together. I put in the green split peas, turned the heat on to high. It took 15 minutes to come to a boil. Then I turned it down to medium, guess mark 3 out of 6, and I've been simmering it on medium for an hour and a half. When there was 45 minutes left, I added the carrots and potatoes that were in about 1/4-inch cubes, and when there was half an hour left, I added 2/3 of a cup of the shredded leftover ham. I tasted it, and the ham adds a ton of flavor, but I think I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning. Just before serving, I added some spices. 1/2 teaspoon each of garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. I didn't add any salt because I thought the ham was salty enough. And I didn't add a ton of spices because the vegetable stock was very flavorful. So the soup didn't need much. My soup has now been off of the heat for about 15 minutes. You can see as it cools down, it's thickening up very nicely. So I'm going to serve it. I'm sure you can see the cornbread in the background. I'm going to have some cornbread as well. Oh, this looks great. I also have some bits of ham that I'm going to sprinkle on top. Nice presentation. It's still a bit too hot to eat, but to serve, it's perfect. Here is my split pea soup with ham. Amazing. This split pea soup with ham recipe was easy and delicious. This soup was so delicious because of the combination of strong and subtle flavors. Smoked ham has a strong flavor, but split peas have a subtle flavor. So the ham did a great job of adding flavor to the split peas, and the split peas did a great job of not competing with the ham. The potatoes and carrots, along with a bit of seasoning, really adding to this dish. I tasted the ham bone broth on its own, and it was really fantastic, so I have no doubt that making the vegetable stock along with the ham bone broth in the same pot would be great. It would add a ton of flavor to the soup. However, like I said, I wanted to cut down on the calories a bit, and I thought that this split pea soup with ham was still delicious, even though it had a bit less fat in it. This soup is a cheap and easy way to use up a bit of leftover ham that isn't enough for a full meal. I'm sure I'm not the only one who had some leftover ham from the holidays, so if you have a ham bone, give this split pea soup a try. As you can see, it goes great with a slice of cornbread. So, if your New Year's resolution is to save money while also saving calories, be sure to make this soup. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.